Some of you might be familiar with the TexMesonet. It's a network of hydrometeorological observation stations. Some of you might even be able to say that. I think I almost got it right. If I say it really fast, I'm less likely to stumble on all of those syllables. There are over a dozen groundwater conservation districts that partner with the development board on this program. We all know how important data is to inform our decision making, and that data that comes from the TexMesonet is a piece of the puzzle. I'm excited to introduce our first speaker, Nathan Leber of the Texas Water Development Board. He's the program manager for the TexMesonet, and he's going to share some about that important program. Let's welcome Nathan.
Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to be here. When I was informed I'd be kicking off, I wasn't sure whether to be nervous or excited, and to tell you the truth, I think I'm more excited than anything. Leah talked a little bit about what data means to this community, and it means a lot to a lot of different communities. Today I'll be talking about TexMesonet. It is a weather station network. I'll dissect what exactly TexMesonet means, because who the heck knows what a mesonet is? The Tex, obviously, is Texas. Mesonet, broken down, is a mesoscale network. A mesoscale network of weather stations across the state that bring in high-quality, robust data, publicly accessible, so we can support different sectors of our economy do what they're trying to do. One of those sectors, obviously, is the groundwater world. Mesonets have been pioneered across our country. States like Oklahoma have been in the business for over 30 years. Right here in Texas, we have a network that's been around for 20 plus years called the West Texas Mesonet. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the work that they do. They manage over 150 stations in the Panhandle in West Texas, bring high quality data. And unfortunately, that data is behind paywalls at this time. So we understood the need for a network of weather stations to serve the people of Texas freely, openly, to help make the decisions that you guys have to make every day easier. Today I'll be talking about the network development, what started the program. We'll talk a little bit about a technical overview. What do our sites look like? How are they spaced across the state? Where are we in the program? Obviously, if we're bringing in a lot of data, it doesn't do any good unless we can get that data to the public and the people who need it to make those decisions that they're trying to make. Our primary platform for that data dissemination is TexMesonet.org. We'll go through TexMesonet briefly. If you have any questions, obviously, I encourage you to look at our website. Let me know your feedback. We had some recent occurrences at the 88th Texas Legislative Session, and we'll be sharing those with you. We have some new network partners that have come into the network and we're excited for, and then next steps. Where are we going with this program? And what do we need from you guys to help make it a success? The impetus for the TexMesonet program began with the Memorial Day floods in 2015. See, the data rainfall distribution across South Central Texas was extreme. Over 18 inches in the white areas. And if you can see, I think I have a pointer here. This little white dot right here, where we had almost 23 inches of rain, is a watershed that feeds into the Blanco River, which runs right past Wimberley. And during this event, we saw a catastrophic wall of water rush down the Blanco River and take with it houses, unseat bridges, and claim lives. Now, I can't say if we had had adequate infrastructure in the watershed where this occurred, we would have been able to save the lives that were taken, but we might have been able to. And so as a response to the Memorial Day floods, the governor allocated $6.8 million to the Texas Water Development Board for purposes of preparing for a disaster, including installing a network of stream gauges. Those are flood-hardened USGS stream gauges. To develop TexasFlood.org, which is another website that the Texas Water Development Board manages, support the NWS flood forecasting, provide flood protection grants, enhance community outreach, and yes, fund TexMesonet. $6.8 million sounds like a lot of money, but the amount of that piece of pie that TexMesonet got was far less than $6.8 million. So we were resource constrained from the very beginning. Our first steps at developing a statewide network of weather stations was understanding what we had. The board funded a feasibility study authored by John Nielsen Gammon, our state climatologist, Guy Phipps of Texas ET and Water My Yard fame, of Todd Caldwell, who was with the University of Texas at Austin's Texon network at the time, and several others. And this feasibility study undertook looking at existing networks across the state. And what they found was there are a lot of existing weather stations across the state of varying qualities, collecting varying parameters, different sensors, but none of these stations were integrated into one statewide coordinated network. Nobody could go to one location and find all this information at their fingertips for when they needed to find out the information that they were looking for. And so using this feasibility study as a framework, as a playbook for how we moved forward, the TexMesonet program examined what was already there. And it looks pretty good. These are all stations belonging to networks, coordinated networks across the state. Now, these don't include backyard weather stations. These are higher quality networks. And so we said, okay, there's some gaps. That's not too difficult. We can fill in those gaps. There's a whole lot of data around the urban areas. But then we dug in a little bit more. We looked at multi-parameter weather stations. It doesn't look quite as good. We have in the Panhandle area in West Texas, the West Texas Mesonet dots, those are the red dots. And they've got a pretty good coverage in that region of the state, but then there's some major gaps. And Texas is a big state, and so these might look close together, but we're talking 100 plus miles apart. And as we dug even farther in, looking at stations that provided information like soil moisture data or solar radiation, it was even more bleak. Most of the state has zero coverage at all. And so we understood that this wasn't an easy undertaking, and we understood we had a lot of work to do. And so we got to work designing what these stations would look like across the state. We worked with existing Mesonets across the country, Oklahoma Mesonet, West Texas Mesonet, New York Mesonet, in identifying a design that would serve our needs, save us resources. These aren't cutting-edge sensors. These are tried and true sensors that we've installed. We followed WMO, World Meteorological Organization standards, in the design of these sites. And we came up with a design on the screen, which includes a 30-foot tower, has a 40 by 40-foot enclosure. These are self-sustained solar panel powered, They operate on cellular communications. So these are standalone. We don't require any infrastructure other than cellular coverage to be able to put a station in the ground. And each of these sites report the data they're collecting every 5 minutes. As far as the sensor array, at the top of the stations, we have 10-meter wind speed and direction, 9-meter temperature. We have 2-meter temperature, 2-meter temperature and relative humidity, wind speed and direction at 2-meter. We have barometric pressure, 2 precip buckets, solar radiation, and typically 4 different depths of soil moisture and temperature. Obviously, in Texas, we don't always have enough soil to put in 4 different depths, but where we can, we install at 5 centimeters, 10 centimeters, 20 and 50 centimeters. And so once we had this design put together, we got to work, and we got to work installing across the state where we could find supporters. Some of our early supporters were GCDs that were willing to help us find landowners that were amenable to us putting in these sites and being able to access them. As Leah mentioned, we have tremendous support from the groundwater community, and we hope to further that support as we look for additional locations to build out this network. This is what a typical station looks like when it's finished. It's fenced in so we don't have domestic animal problems or wild animal problems. And I'm happy to report that as of this month, we installed our 100th station. We've been around since our first install was 2016. 100 stations was a big hurdle for us. It was a big achievement for us. We worked with the Edwards Aquifer Authority. This station is located at their field research park in northeast Bexar County. Brian Anderson, who is my primary contact with the Edwards Aquifer Authority, uses this data to understand the inputs into their system. Obviously, the Edwards is a karstic aquifer, and a lot of you maybe don't deal with inputs, but he also uses the data to understand forecasting, what's going to happen next, given the current conditions. Looking at the historical data set and understanding what's going on in the atmospheric environment, predicting out how best to manage their resource. He added that conservation efforts hinged on having good data to supply to their producers, their ag users, being able to conserve irrigated water. So today, this is the current network coverage across our state. The green dots are TexMesonet sites. These are our stations that we've installed. The blue dots are cooperator networks. These are networks that were existing prior to the development of the TexMesonet program, but we've incorporated those into our statewide network, and they play a key role. In the red are those West Texas Mesonet sites. And at this time, those are not available publicly. You can view the data in real time, but you can't download that data. But we're working on that. When you get all that data in, you have to be able to serve it up. And like I said, our primary data dissemination tool is the TexMesonet.org website. On this website, you can view every station in the network. We have a variety of calculated parameters, as well as what's coming directly off the sensors. Some third-party resources are available, Drought Monitor. We have precipitation from the National Weather Service. Radar, we have NWS alerts. And this is updated every 5 minutes. Drilling in a little bit for each individual station, you can look at current parameters. You can also look at historical up to 2 weeks in graphical format. And if you need more than that, you can go to our custom download page where you can download the data produced by our sites. You can download by station, by county, by state. And if you need the data faster than this, let me go back. We have APIs. We've developed APIs so you can hit the API and get the data and put it on your website. Put this data out for the folks that you're trying to reach. In addition to supplying the raw data, we've developed some surface maps. I'll be the first to admit we have a lot of work to do here. You're looking at a precip map. We have precip and temperature maps for a variety of time series. But I view this as the third stage in TexMesonet's development. The first is get the infrastructure in the ground, build out the network across Texas. The second is get the raw data to the folks that can handle it and use it in their everyday operations. And the third, for those of us who don't have the resources to be able to develop products using raw data, that's what we're here for. The next stage in the development of the TexMesonet program is understanding what products and tools we can develop with this raw data that serve our stakeholders. And so, given that we know we have a lot of work to do, even outside just putting in another 100, 150 stations across the state, the Texas Water Development Board included in its legislative priorities report the need to codify the responsibilities taken by the TexMesonet program as the statewide coordinator for hydrometeorological operations in the state, hydrometeorological data in the state, as well as enhance the resources available. And so the Water Development Board asked for an exceptional item requests that would have given additional resources to the program. These requests were supported by external entities like the Water Conservation Advisory Council, the Texas Groundwater Protection Committee, and the Texas Living Waters Project. We did okay. We came out 1 for 2. We got the codification, we didn't get the additional resources. And so HB 2759 by Thompson, along with companion bill SB 988 by Perry, codified TWD's responsibilities related to the TexMesonet program. In addition, it codified the TexMesonet Advisory Committee, which is a group of representatives for different stakeholder groups to guide the development of the program. And by text, I won't read all this, but I'll read a little bit. The Texas Water Development Board was tasked with providing a statewide resource for hydrometeorological data and summary information benefiting weather forecasting, flood preparedness, drought monitoring, wildfire management, water resources planning, water conservation, agricultural readiness and productivity, industrial readiness, and related business readiness and productivity across the state. So, not a whole lot. And this is daunting, isn't it? But it goes to say that the data that we're collecting at each of these stations is applicable across so many different sectors of our state's economy. We're just beginning to understand how these data fit into everybody's operating systems. In addition, I said the Texas Mesonet Advisory Committee was formed through this bill. We refer to it as TMAC affectionately. But this is just a group of representatives who can understand and help us optimize the efficiency and the effectiveness of what TexMesonet is trying to do. And lucky for us, we had already convened this advisory group. We have a tremendous group of 9 individuals who serve on our advisory committee, including Guy Phipps, who I mentioned earlier. He works with Texas ET, providing ET network to the state. He works with Water My Yard. John Nielsen Gammon, our state climatologist. And I want to point to Brian Anderson, who is our groundwater stakeholder representative. Brian's with the EAA, and I know for a fact he'd be happy to listen to anybody that has recommendations on how to move the program forward in a beneficial way for the state's groundwater resource managers. We continue to look for partners. We continue to look for support, and our recent collaborations have included acceptance into the National Mesonet program. This program allows us better visibility nationally. It provides better opportunities to disseminate the data, and it provides some resources to help us continue to move forward as a program. Earlier I mentioned that West Texas Mesonet didn't publicly make available the data that they are providing, that they're collecting. And so we've entered into a contract with Texas Tech University to be able to make that data publicly available. We are about a month away from being able to display that at TexMesonet.org. So give me 1 month and go back to the website, and if you don't see it, shoot me a message and complain. We're excited about that. That means that an entire portion of the state is covered. It's beneficial for us, that collaboration. We also work closely with the National Weather Service, West Gulf River Forecast Center, our regional offices, and this excerpt is from a winter weather advisory. It seems a long time ago, but this was in February, putting out the information that TexMesonet.org was available for anybody that needed assistance in understanding what was going on, looking at weather alerts, understanding how best to deploy resources during this event. And so, as the program moves forward, we have a lot of work to do. The next steps, we're looking at continuing to fill in the coverage gaps across the state. The Mesonet is looking to install stations approximately every 20 miles from each other. We always are looking for folks that fit this build-out model that would be willing to let us use some of their property, a 40 by 40 foot piece of property that fits the WMO standards of being open and being representative of the local region. Representative means that it can't be near a major highway or a big water body. But the best part of this is that I get to say, we'd love to do this and we'll do it for free. As long as you can identify somebody willing to give us access to their property and it fits our build out, we can put a $20,000 station in the ground, absolutely no cost to you, and we'll maintain it. I have regional maps for those of you who might be interested. If you or somebody you know are interested, please give me a holler and I can provide those maps to show you exactly where we're looking for property. We'll work with existing networks to upgrade stations. So I mentioned that we use collaborator networks to help fill in our gaps, because trying to support a statewide network that includes hundreds and hundreds or even thousands of stations is unfeasible given the resources we have available. And so we can help upgrade those stations by adding some of the more obscure sensors like soil moisture, solar radiation sensors. And then finally, developing value-added products and tools so we can take that raw data and put it in a format that's more accessible, that's decision-ready, that supports your operations. But we need your help. We need your help finding site sponsors. You guys have access on the ground to a lot more property owners than I do in a lot of different parts of the state that I'm not really familiar with. And if you can help us with that, you benefit and we benefit. We need your help identifying useful products and tools. I talked with Brian Anderson from the Edwards Aquifer Authority about how they use the data, and he said, well, what we're doing with this data is a lot different than somebody that doesn't have karstic aquifers to manage. And there's 9 different major aquifers across the state, and I don't know how everybody could use this data, but I'd like to know, because we want to be able to use this data to make your lives easier, to conserve the water resources that we have as a state. So please, feel free to contact me or hit me up in the hall and let me know what you think we can do to make your lives easier. And finally, we need your help selling the value of the program and the data. We went 1 for 2 with the ledge and we didn't get the additional resources, but right now we have 3 techs supporting 100 stations across the state, also installing stations, approximately 2 a month. And it's tough work, but we're excited about the fact that we've been able to grow the program. We've added 2 additional FTEs over the last couple of years. We continue to see support from a lot of different sponsors, but I'll never say we have enough. So spread the word, let the people know, the people that you work with know that this resource is out there, and please reach back out to us to let us know what we can do to make it easier for you to access this data and use the data in your day-to-day operations. With that, I'm happy to speak with any of you guys, but if anyone has any questions, I'm looking forward to them.
Yes, most airports across the state, or many of them, already have automatic weather observation systems. I know their focus is more on weather observing and forecasting, but the site is already there. Have you given any consideration to collaborating with those entities?
I'm sorry, which entities were those?
At the airport, the automated weather observation systems that are already there in place?
We do. We collaborate with FAA sites at airports across the state. What we found, though, is that most of those sites are in urban areas, and so we're really trying to fill in the gaps that exist in the more rural areas. Urban areas get a lot of the attention, and that's fantastic. That's part of the state that we don't have to cover. But we bring in those sites as well.
That's excellent stuff. Thank you. I didn't hear you talk about remote sensing products, which could fill in the gaps.
Absolutely.
From the networks.
Remote sensing, obviously, tremendous tool for us to use. We bring in some third-party remote sensed products. We just hired a gentleman who worked on the Grace satellite to come in and help us understand how to bring that data in, to develop tools that use our in-situ data to understand how, I guess, to calibrate that data across our state. So that's something that we look forward to introducing back into TexMesonet. We just need a little more time.
But also for precipitation, for evapotranspiration, leaf area index, things like that, which actually matter to your water budgets. So I think, I mean, because you may miss precipitation between rain gauges, but if you have a NexRad information, you may be able to merge that with your ground-based systems to provide aerial coverage temporally and spatially, right?
I completely agree with you. I think it's a combination of the two data sets that gets us the very best product.
So you all are working with that, right, as
What?
well? You all are working in fusing all this data as well?
We're looking forward to it.
That'll be wonderful. Thank you.
Could you tell us specifically what kinds of commitments are needed by the landowner in order to make this feasible, make it work?
So we found early on that if we asked for somebody to give us their land to use, and we asked for a lot of commitments, that they quickly backed away, and we never heard from them again. The site access agreement that we use is basic. It says that we have access to the property. There's no time commitment. If the landowner wants us out, we have 60 days to pick up and leave. All the access agreement does is allows us to visit the site, to manage the resource that we have there, and that's pretty much it. There's some liability information in there that protects the landowner, but other than that, it's very basic. We don't need electricity. It's all solar powered. It's a standalone unit.
We did have one question come in on the app about the station investment.
The what?
The investment, the cost of the stations.
Sure. These stations cost about $20,000. That's a cost borne by the program. We have worked with some GCDs in the past to install additional stations outside of what typically fits our build out, and that's an option that we can discuss. But if it does fit the build out that we're shooting for, the costs are completely covered by the program.
Any other questions?
Tell us about the, the land maintenance aspects. Do you weed eat the property, the fence line? Do you use chemicals? And what have you found to be the objections later after it's been installed from the typical landowner?
So we've installed 100 stations, and we've had to move 2 stations, not because of objections, but one because somebody was developing the property that we put it on, and the second because a structure was built nearby. Other than that, the complaints have been minimal. We visit each site at least twice a year to weed eat, keep the vegetation down, make sure that all the sensors are looking good. If sites require additional visits to keep the vegetation down so they don't impact the sensors, we send out a tech to do that. That said, if our landowner is willing to work with us to go out and troubleshoot something, take a peek at something, we look forward to folks that are interested in helping, so we don't necessarily have to drive 5 hours across the state before we understand that it's just a leaf in the sensor.
Leah, may I ask?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nathan, thank you. I'm Dirk Aaron with Clearwater, the groundwater district in Bell County. And just to kind of complement the program, we actually partnered with our Commissioners Court as a GCD, and we're able to put 5 stations in our county in that initial group. One thing I will say is that it's not a burden on us other than raising the money to get the fences and get you access. We use a lot of public land opposed to private lands, such as cities, cemeteries, HOAs, Water Supply Corporation, and even TxDOT there at the rest stop south of Salado. So I just want to compliment the program, and don't be hesitant to participate if you're somebody listening. You can find alternative places And his team does a superb job of maintaining those sites. And we used to get a lot of calls to do things, and now they've just gotten so robust that we rarely get a call from your team. But again, I just want to encourage people there's other alternatives than private land. Thank you.
I appreciate that and appreciate your participation in the program.
That was great, Nathan. Thank you so much. Let's give Nathan a round of applause.